The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the show. It's been an interesting weekend, Lewis, as we know. We have. Do you want to make the announcement about Krakatoa Metal Band?
What announcement is that?
You tell me if you want to make the announcement. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean basically we're going to be going on into hibernation, as we're calling it,
Right.
because our singer is moving.
Right. A lot of questions recently about lack of mentions of Krakatoa Metal Band on the show. And it's not that you haven't been playing shows. It's just that there has been controversy, the likes of which we may one day see on a VH1 Behind the Music type of program.
We can only hope.
We can only hope. But so there will be a hiatus for Krakatoa Metal Band.
Yes.
This is really being directed. You're being honest when you say it's directed by the singer moving. It's not something reminiscent of, when Bruce Springsteen wasn't getting along with the E Street Band, or if that even happened. I'm not sure if that's fact, but this is a true story.
True story. Some other members of the band, even the singer, said, well, maybe you could just find a replacement for me while I'm gone. I said, I don't really want to bother with that.
Right. I mean, the singer is so paramount in terms of the singer is the band in terms of the face and the sound of the lyrics, right? I mean, it is the growling. That's the reality of the situation.
The same applies to any band
Yeah.
and the singer.
It's tough to change singers. I mean, a lot of the bands cycle in. Journey has done it with some success. I mean, they're still touring 30 years after Steve Perry. But
it very rarely works out.
It very rarely works out well.
Yeah.
Are you considering new projects if people want to contact you?
I haven't really thought about that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Let's keep the conversation going. Is there going to be like a big blowout final show?
That's the plan, yes. At which we will be re-releasing our first album. Just it will sound a lot better now.
Nice.
And a 4-song EP to go along with it.
Oh, I think I'll probably go to that one. Is there a location? Well, but let's not give the details yet.
It'll be in town.
It'll be in town. Very good. All right. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Update on Krakatoa Metal Band. Here's another update, completely different topic. Last week, we heard about the killing of Colorado's Corrections Department Chief Tom Clements at his home. Tom Clements opened the door to his home around 8:30 p.m. and was reportedly shot and killed right then and there. Was taken to the hospital, but was unclear whether he was even hanging on to life at that point, given the proximity of that shot. And we didn't report on it last week. It was still unclear exactly what the details were, if there was a suspect, and I thought it would be better off, we'd be better off to wait until we had more information. Well, now we do, and it turns out, I don't think many people are surprised by this, that the suspect is a white supremacist ex-convict, 28 years old, named Evan Spencer Ebel. And he was spotted in Montague County, Texas, driving a Cadillac that matched the description of the one spotted near the victim's home on the night of the shooting. Police tried pulling him over. He allegedly opened fire, shot Deputy James Boyd 3 times. A high-speed chase ensued, and it ended with Ebel crashing his car and more gunfire being exchanged at a busy intersection. Just a horrific scene, Lewis. Imagine you're just trying to get milk, and this is going on.
Bullets flying around, yeah.
Bullets flying around you. Ebel was eventually shot in the head. He is reported to be on life support, but brain dead. Many people would argue anybody who would do something like this was probably brain dead before being brain dead in the medical sense, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There's another aspect to this story, which I would label as right-wing domestic terrorism. A Domino's pizza uniform and an empty pizza box were found in the vehicle, which led authorities to suspect that Ebel may have been involved in another murder altogether, that of Nathan Leon, a delivery driver who was recently found dead in Colorado. Police sources told Fox 31 Denver that the disguise might have been what was used to trick Clements into opening the front door in the first place.
Wow.
Is this right-wing domestic terrorism? It is against an official of the prison system. This is an ex-convict. This is also an individual who is a white supremacist and appeared to have white supremacist ties. It's not being reported as such. What do we need to look at here? I mean, certainly it was crime done by a right-wing domestic ex-convict. That we can say.
Yeah. I guess it all depends on how you define terrorism, right? And that's hard to do. I mean, I would argue that if you're killing mercilessly people who are unarmed or civilians, what have you, I mean, I guess I would consider it an off-duty cop to be a civilian. I mean, it doesn't, that's that's pretty broad.
Well,
I guess I would call that terrorism.
The cop he shot was on duty. The individual he shot was the head of corrections in Colorado. He was.
Okay.
I mean, duty is not exactly maybe a relevant term there because it's a full-time position. It's
Right.
not shift work, so to
Right.
speak. Natan, what do you think? Is this terrorism?
I don't know. I mean, it'll come down to motive, whether they can establish that he had a political motive and hope to communicate some sort of a political message. I mean, I think it's always a crime first, and potentially you can label it terrorism depending on motive.
How will Fox News connect this to President Obama?
Let's see. He staged it, right?
There
Yeah.
you go. Right, to create a pretense under which to do stuff with guns.
Right.
Got it. Here's an interesting story from the Detroit Free Press. There's a conservative Christian group called the Alliance Defending Freedom, which has filed a lawsuit against Eastern Michigan University on behalf of a student group that was denied funding from the university for an exhibit which really likened abortion to the Holocaust. And the group, the Alliance Defending Freedom group, is based in Arizona, and they say that they work to defend the civil rights of Christians and conservatives. And they filed a lawsuit in U.S. District Court in Detroit. So the lawsuit said, what are the facts here? What exactly happened? The lawsuit says that the student government should have given $5,000 to a group called Students for Life, which they had requested last month, to sponsor the Genocide Awareness Project. Now, what happens in that project, Lewis? It's a project that goes around the country, which uses big displays that compare abortion to the Nazis' mass killing of Jews, the lynching of African Americans, as well as genocide in Cambodia. So it goes around the U.S. It's run by the Center for Bioethical Reform, a California group that opposes abortion. So the argument from the attorney that is with the alliance says universities should encourage, not shut down, the free exchange of ideas. Now, here's the problem. You have the right to freely express your opinions on the campus, and the university can encourage that in any number of ways that don't involve giving $5,000 to a group that likens abortion to the Holocaust. It doesn't mean that they have to give you money. And not giving you money does not mean they are shutting down an exchange of ideas, Lewis.
Right. I agree.
I mean, if you can show, now here's the caveat. If you can show that the university specifically funded some kind of pro-choice display, you might have a legitimate argument. And then you could argue about, well, was the pro-choice display fact-based or was it propaganda and hyperbole-based, as this anti-choice display appears to be? But that's a legitimate argument that you could have. But just complaining that the university isn't funding this ludicrous crusade likening the Holocaust to abortion, to me, Natan, does not seem like a compelling legal argument.
Well, it's about the money, so it's not about the speech. In other words, the freedom of speech argument is dependent on the money, because no one is saying, the university never said the students can't publicly proclaim their beliefs in front of the campus or anything like that.
Hold on a second, though.
Yeah.
There is one area where I disagree. It is about the speech, because the comparison of a legal medical procedure whose lack of availability leads to deaths, likening that to the Holocaust, is offensive and inaccurate, but some would argue it borders on hate speech, Lewis. And then wouldn't you have an argument that says, specifically because this is hate speech, it can be limited?
Yeah, you would get into that. And I know schools do a lot of great things. There's a lot of money being given to great causes. And I hate to say it, in general, I think just giving these unions, these groups, a forum, a place to speak, maybe an actual space to do whatever they need to do is enough. I mean,
you're making an interesting point, which is the group, regardless of what it believes, and it appears to believe that abortion is like the Holocaust, is allowed to exist. The group presumably has access to all the same campus spaces that any other group would have access to. They're just not getting money for the exhibit, which has big posters likening abortion to the Holocaust. That does not seem like any kind of undue restriction on speech.
Right. Not at all.
Do you agree, Natan?
Yeah, well, it'll just depend on whether there was another group with an opposite belief that did obtain money from the university.
I think that's the only issue here, yeah.
Right. I was just going to make another point, which is the idea here that in general of freedom of speech here, I think the issue is, I mean, if Holocaust denial, for example, is protected under freedom of speech, I don't see how simply making a ridiculous but common comparison between Nazism, fascism, and, domestic American political issues. I don't see how that would be classified in and of itself as hate speech.
You agree with that, Lewis, or disagree? I think it just comes down to the execution of it.
Yeah, probably.
Mother Jones has a very, very worthwhile article about what big agriculture doesn't want you to see. Now, for the second year in a row, the livestock and meat industries are backing bills in a number of different state houses that would actually criminalize undercover investigations of livestock farms. Now, we know, Lewis, that one of the most effective ways to get attention to how our food is raised is getting cameras into livestock farms and slaughterhouses. This is something that those companies very, very acutely are aware of and try to prevent.
Right.
And we've seen some movies that have gotten some footage of what goes on there. Food Inc. comes to mind, although it's really not very, there's not really that much in there. In fact, it was actually difficult to get around most of those places. Now, the Humane Society of the U.S. is one of the animal welfare groups that is most adept at doing these undercover investigations, typically with hidden cameras. And they are saying that there are at least 9 states that have these, what they're being called ag-gag bills, gag order bills on agriculture. And a lot of them are based on this model that ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, has basically put together. They've made this cookie cutter, industry-friendly legislation that can go to just about any state, make some modifications, and you can criminalize these undercover investigations. This is a disaster. Now, to people who say, well, hold on a second. If you're trespassing, if you are using a false identity, pretending to be some kind of FDA investigator to get in somewhere and then recording, that should be illegal. And it already is. You do not need this broad scope legislation to specifically criminalize undercover investigations of these facilities. We already have trespass laws. We already have penalties for impersonating a federal employee. We have all of those things. And this is so clearly something that is there because the big agriculture, big livestock companies know that what goes on there, if it were to become public, would be disastrous to their bottom line. And that's all this is. This is a protect big business proposal sponsored in part by ALEC, which we know is a group that has those big corporate interests in mind.
Right. So the influence of these companies is working. I mean, what the government should be doing is the exact opposite. What they should be doing is allowing media and anyone who wants to capture what's going on there in at certain times during the year, during the month, what have you, to be able to see what's going on here, to be able to see what's happening to the food everyone is eating.
Speaking of freedom of the press, Natan, given that we have specific legislations, specific laws, specific legislation in place, that if you do something that is specifically illegal, like trespassing or whatever, it applies no matter whether you are a member of the media or not doing an investigation. Could this be argued that this is a type of law that is specifically targeting the press and therefore would be a government restriction on freedom of the press? Why do we need specific laws specifically applying to investigations by media?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it could, but this totally reeks of guilt. The only reason why any company would push for a law like this to be passed is specifically because they don't want people to know what actually goes on.
Obviously. Why
It's
else
just
would
totally
you do
obvious.
it? If there was nothing to hide, you wouldn't need specific legislation criminalizing undercover documentaries of lives. I mean, how specific is this? It is absolutely, to me, an indication that there is a problem.
Oh, I'm sure the
A
conditions...
problem we know exists.
Yeah, all over the place are heinous. Just the thought of it, that the only footage we can get of where our food is coming from is obtained illegally, covertly through subterfuge. It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So we're going to keep an eye on these bills and see where they go. There's a lot of money behind them. So I would encourage individuals to contact your local representative and if your state is one of these 9, and I apologize I don't have the list in front of me, but check out the Mother Jones article and say you are against this, and the congressperson, just as well as you and their kids and your kids, everybody needs to have some level of access to where our food is coming from, and this bill is going above and beyond everything that already exists that prevents us from knowing that.
Right.
Book recommendation. Today's book recommendation made possible by the book A Fashion of Bastards by Joanna Louise Johnson, the genre-busting environmental intrigue story that has readers asking, could it be true? Nonfiction today, Lewis. Malcolm Gladwell's What the Dog Saw. I'm not usually a huge fan of Malcolm Gladwell, so a lot of people come to me and they say, have you read Blink? Have you read The Tipping Point? It changed my life, man. And I don't subscribe to that. I must say that, Lewis. I hope that won't offend you.
Nope, that's fine.
But I recently picked up What the Dog Saw, and this is kind of like a compilation of different pieces Malcolm Gladwell has written over the years. These were not all written at once. It was not just one. They were not written to be part of a book, at least not initially. And it's a great combination of stuff. Some of my favorite stories in here. Each is about 25 or 30 pages. There's a great profile of, and it sounds weird, but when I read it, I was completely sucked in. You know the Showtime rotisserie that's in those late night infomercials? Ron Popeil is the guy who's the salesman. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The story of Ron Popeil is actually fascinating, and just how he built this, how he developed his salesmanship skills, and the piece in the book tracks him all across the country doing trade shows and selling individual kitchen gadgets, and how it grew to what it is now, and really a lot of the stuff that went on behind the scenes in developing the product. It's no accident how every single piece of those infomercials, which I've never bought anything off of an infomercial, but I actually am fascinated by them. Really interesting piece in that book.
Good stuff.
There's another one in there that's really good surrounding myths around pit bull type dogs, which really it's at least 3 and really probably 7 or 8 different breeds that fall under what people kind of colloquially and often incorrectly say are pit bull dogs. And it really injects a lot of numbers and rationale and information around that and the media stereotypes. Those are just 2. There's probably, 16 or 18 pieces in the book. So again, What the Dog Saw by Malcolm Gladwell. Probably my favorite Malcolm Gladwell book, and I've read several of them. Not a huge fan.
Good recommendation.
Thank you, Lewis. Today's bonus show. What do we have on the bonus show? A thief returns money after 30 years. Russia's elite are using ambulances as taxis. The ambulances are completely stripped out inside and set up with very plush accommodations. And a deadly virus has gone missing from a lab. That's all on today's bonus show. It's very easy to sign up. DavidPakman.com/membership. Become a member today and stay with us, because coming up next, Pat Robertson's latest and a lot more stuff. Excellent show today. Glad you're with us.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
You can support the David Pakman Show for free if you do any shopping on Amazon.com. You can go to our website, davidpakman.com. On the right side of the website, you'll see a banner that takes you to the Amazon website. Click it, do your shopping, check out. Nothing different will show up on your screen, but Amazon, after your purchase, will send us back 7% of what you spent. Doesn't cost you anything extra. You can, of course, also become a David Pakman Show member, made possible in part by liberalbias.com. We know, Lewis, that liberals think they're so cool with their fancy statistics and math, but conservatives have numerology, and you can find out more about that at liberalbias.com.
I will.
Rebecca Cordaro is today's new David Pakman Show member of the day. Rebecca, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining. We depend on members like Rebecca, Lewis, to keep the show up and running.
Indeed.
Dodgeball. Over the weekend, the David Pakman Show team, which didn't have Natan or Lewis on it for reasons that I was not able to explain to anybody there, won.
Well, I didn't even know about it.
The Springfield, Massachusetts Young Professionals Cup Dodgeball Tournament. Lewis, it was an all-day event. It started well before you woke up, and we ended up going undefeated the entire day to come out first place out of more than 40 teams. And there I am holding the championship trophy, which was then taken from me because they need to put the David Pakman Show on the trophy and then give it back to me, and then I've got to give it back next year. It's a whole thing. I'm thinking of just saying to them, why don't you hold on to the trophy? Because it's I'm not in the business of sending trophies around, you know?
So hold on. They put a little plaque with your name on it.
Exactly, yeah. On the back, on the side here, you can see that there's different plaques.
And then next year you have to give it back?
Right, and then whoever wins next year, they engrave that team's name onto it in addition. It's almost like...
what if you sell it during that time? Do they make you sign something?
You have to sign something. They say it's a $500 trophy. That's right.
$500 trophy.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe that. Natan, let's put up the action shot at the beginning of one game. It's the other picture we have. There it is. I'm in the middle. And I'm about to pick up the ball. And that's that. I mean, it was quite a tournament, I must say. We represented very well.
Way to represent.
Some conservative guy who was like reffing, he was like, "So what's the David Pakman show anyway?" And the conversation went downhill from there. It started on a low note, and then it went down from there. But in any case,
It hit rock bottom,
we were
huh?
able to circumvent any liberal or conservative bias that may have existed within the refereeing, and we reigned victorious on that day, Lewis.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and congratulations to you. All right. Pat Robertson. Pat Robertson is certainly a scamster when it comes to using religion to scam people into either believing things or to giving him money, as he did with those initial 700 people who funded his 700 Club program. And Pat Robertson now is issuing a warning, which is pretty funny, which is you got to beware of scamsters in religious garb, kind of like Pat Robertson. Here's what he had to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, beware of these scamsters, especially scamsters in religious garb, quoting the Bible. I mean, run from them.
Right.
They're all over the place.
Yeah. I don't know.
The best advice he's ever given.
It's the best advice he's ever given, but if his audience takes the advice, the guy's out of a job.
Right. Right.
Do you think he has, so when we see that video, do you think he has any self-realization process that goes on where he realizes that some people, even if he disagrees, I'm not saying he agrees, but that some people see him as what he is being critical of here? Or do you think that he completely has just no idea, he's not in any way self-aware of how he's
Yeah, I
perceived?
think that completely evades him. I think he thinks he actually talks to God and that he is somehow a representative.
Do you think that when he's talking about scamsters in religious barb holding the Bible and yelling about Jesus, would somebody who said God told him in advance about Hurricane Katrina, but he didn't bother to tell anyone about it until afterwards, would that fall under the definition of a scamster with religious garb, Natan?
Sounds like it to me.
Yeah. What about someone telling a viewer that clothing she bought might be infected by demons? Would that fall under, Lewis, like a scamster who is holding the Bible, yelling about religion, yelling about
sure.
Jesus? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think Pat Robertson is talking about himself.
Yeah, my favorite one is the one with the woman who said she can barely afford food. Is it bad not to pay her church
Right.
dues? And he said, "Oh, you have to pay your tithe."
Yeah, because
you know,
God will provide for you
Right,
ultimately,
right.
and it'll come back in the form of
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea what.
Pat Robertson now responsible for starving people.
A West Virginia newspaper named the Lincoln Journal is defending their publishing of an anti-gay opinion column that called for the death of queers, niggers, spics, kikes, and wops. Now, that is a pretty broad swath, Lewis, of people there, isn't it?
It is. Well, now, what is a WAP? Is that in Italian?
I honestly have no idea.
Isn't
Yeah,
it
I believe so.
in Italian?
Yeah, okay. Ross Story has a report on this, and the newspaper what they did is this: they received a voicemail which they then transcribed. they transcribed an anti-gay, anti-Semitic, anti-everything voicemail, transcribed it, and then printed it. And then they're saying, listen, we don't publish it because we necessarily agree with it. We simply believe that this was a comment and that we published it. And then they went out and they did some interviews. And I want to be clear, this was an anonymous voicemail. We don't know who left the voicemail. But this man here agrees with the voicemail. This guy's name is Leroy Ramey. And he said, I don't have to read it all. I already agree with that. Get rid of them, apparently speaking about gay people. So this gentleman here appears to agree with that opinion. So the question really is it right to publish an anonymous voicemail transcript, right? You don't print anonymous sources, especially if they threaten groups. I'm not completely convinced that I wouldn't be surprised if this had been made up.
Well, I mean, my question is, what about the Dune Coons, Japs, Chinks, and Zipperheads? I
Right.
mean, they seem to have forgotten about those.
This is not, Natan, this guy has missed a lot of groups here.
There's a lot to be said for all of those other groups
Yeah.
in a similar type of column.
So Natan, specifically when we're talking about the idea of publishing a transcript of a voicemail that is hate speech in a newspaper, what do we say about it?
Well, look, assuming it doesn't violate any obscenity laws or any FCC violations, I think that it's definitely educational. Although I will say, in a small town, if you publish it and everyone in the small town kind of agrees with the hate,
Yeah.
it's kind of irrelevant.
It's kind of just like a group affirmation of insane xenophobia, racism, and bias.
Yeah, I mean, I could see someone saying, well, let's not let people forget that this type of opinion is still very prevalent in West Virginia.
If there was a commentary, it could be unsigned, but from the editorial department of the Lincoln Journal saying that we are putting this as evidence of the incredibly destructive blah, 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 that would be a different story. But that's not what this was. This was just, hey, here's an opinion. Take a look.
Well, what if those were the only opinions they received that day?
What if this was the most progressive voicemail they had to transcribe from that weekend? Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, strange stuff. I mean, personally, would I put that on there? No, it's definitely just hate speech.
What I can say is my point in telling you about this is to tell you this exists, and we should not forget that. Republican Senator Saxby Chambliss was asked about whether his views on gay marriage are changing, if they are evolving, if he is more supportive of same-sex marriage, because we've had a number of different Republicans say a number of different things that tend to make me think we're going in the direction, which I think we've been going in for many, many years, of full equality when it comes to LGBT individuals. And he was asked, well, what do you think? And his response was, and here it is, I'm not gay, so I'm not going to marry one. I'm not gay, so I'm not going to marry one. This doesn't really shed that much light on whether his views are evolving or not, because I can't understand what on earth he's talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a view on anything. He's basically just trying to make the claim that he's not gay.
There is another thing to think about here, though.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
You guys are joking, right? You can tell what he means by this.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying he's not going to marry a gay person, but there's something interesting here, which is this idiotic statement that he made, which doesn't really tell us what his views are, might actually be secretly brilliant or progressive, although I don't think this is what it is. But think about it. Listen, he's not gay. So, you know what? Don't marry a gay person of the same gender. Forget about what anybody else is
Exactly.
doing. That's the conservative point of view. That's not Saxby Chambliss's point of view as far as we know, though, Natan. You don't like abortions? Don't get one. Don't bother other people that are pursuing legal medical procedures. You don't believe birth control should be used? Don't use it, but don't bother people who choose to use it. This is really the conservative view, right, of less government. Hey, I'm not going to get in the way in any case. I'm not going to make the government get in the way. I'm not going to get in the way of those people. I'll just live my life the way I want to live it.
Right. But
We don't see that very often.
we agree that that's probably not really what he's saying.
No.
No.
I agree with you. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. We've got behind-the-scenes pictures. We've got hate mail, all sorts of stuff on our Facebook page. We'll take a break. Coming up next, I will interview a reporter for the Tea Party about the new Tea Party boycott of Fox News. Stay with us.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Back on the program is Susie Sampson. You may remember her from, I think it was the Republican or Democratic National Convention. She joined us pre-election, and she is now back. Susie Sampson is a reporter for the Tea Party, and she is a very strong advocate for her cause. Susie, it's great to have you here, and I want to talk about the Tea Party boycott of Fox News. Now, there's a lot of Tea Partiers are now saying Fox News has become too liberal to have the support of the Tea Party. It seems to me that there is a lot of trouble brewing within the Republican Party if the primary media outlet of that party now is losing the support of the Tea Party, which they claim is about 20% of the viewership. Do you support the boycott?
Absolutely, I support the boycott. I think we should be there every day. I think it should be Occupy Fox News and then kick out all those liberals and have the conservatives camping out outside.
What is liberal about Fox News that makes the Tea Party say it is not representative of Republican values?
Well, I mean, at this point, Megyn Kelly is borderline socialist. The way she spoke, I mean, obviously I'm not a fan of Karl Rove these days, but the way she spoke to him with that sass and attitude, and the way her co-anchor, laughed. I mean, that man, those white teeth and that fake tan, I'm telling you, reminds me of Speaker Boehner, another, GOP rhino, if you will.
But hold on a second. I mean, I understand what you're saying about Karl Rove. I don't like Karl Rove either, but
We have something in common.
thank you. But doesn't the Republican Party need to recognize that Karl Rove took hundreds of millions of dollars for different candidates in the 2012 election? He basically is batting zero with those, and that it's perfectly fair to question. Even it would actually be evidence that Megyn Kelly wants Republicans to do well if she's questioning Karl Rove about what he did in the 2012 election. Wouldn't you support that if you want Republicans to do better? Or is the Tea Party just no longer concerned with the broader Republican Party at all?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Now, I recently went to CPAC, the greatest gathering of patriots in favor of freedom I have ever seen. And let me tell you, and I did a video there, by the way, and it was very clear that we are the future, and we are our own party, if you will.
Yeah, but it really doesn't seem that way. I mean, look, a lot of Tea Partiers got elected under the auspices of being part of the Tea Party back in 2010. By 2012, a ton of them had been voted out altogether, like Alan West and a number of others. The ones who didn't get voted out have basically just become absorbed into the mainstream Republican Party. I just don't understand, if you don't even have Fox News on your side as the Tea Party, what do you have? You don't have public opinion. You don't have even the right-wing media at this point. I just don't understand what the end game is, Susie.
So have we ever cared about the facts? No. So, I mean, just because the facts seem to be on your side, or at least the things you're saying, has no bearing on my brain and the brain of my fellow conservatives. Just because people are saying we need to be more liberal, and just because they say Mitt Romney lost the presidency, of course, heavy on the say, but just because they said it doesn't mean any of it's so. We in the Tea Party believe that we are the future. Rick Santorum, I don't know. I see him running in 2016, 2020, 2024.
Yeah. Do you really believe, though, that the 2012 election is in question in some way? I mean, Mitt Romney, because of polls that we now know were completely biased, thought, I guess, that he had an actual chance of winning the 2012 election. It's been widely shown that it was the polling that was wrong. But does the Tea Party contend? Do you contend that the problem is some kind of foul play or something that Mitt Romney actually did win the 2012 election?
Well, I think that this is not new news, so, read up, sir. But I think that generally speaking, Ohio, I think Karl Rove still thinks it's still in question. And, Florida, it's always a tricky one. So you never know.
Okay.
We like to believe that maybe there was some foul play in mind.
What particular issue, beyond just being mean to Karl Rove, is an issue where Fox News is just not up to speed with the Tea Party point of view? Because so far all you've said is Megyn Kelly was mean to Karl Rove, which, okay, I guess that's interesting. But if you only have Fox News even remotely on your side,
No.
what else have they done? What issues do you disagree with Fox on?
Well, a big one is immigration, right? I mean, as Ann Coulter said, she says no amnesty. And that is the feeling of a lot of my fellow patriots. That's
Right.
a big one. They're just opening up those borders, loosening the rope, if you will.
How exactly has that happened? How exactly has President Obama loosened the borders?
Well, we don't know, and it's part of his larger conspiracy, we think. So I'm sure it's happening. Again, we don't really rely on facts.
Right.
We rely more on our feelings and our
Susie,
emotions.
I'm getting the point that I'm getting the idea that a lot of the things that the Tea Party believes, you believe them simply because you haven't looked up information on the internet that shows you that you're wrong. That's not really proof of anything, is it? Oh,
I'm sure I can find some articles that say I'm right. Don't you fret. Don't you worry. There are some great conservative media and bloggers out there that are telling the truth.
All right. Well, the boycott of Fox News continues by the Tea Party because Fox News is too liberal. We've been speaking with Susie Sampson. She's a reporter for the Tea Party. You can check her out on YouTube at youtube.com/Tea Party Report. I think a visit to that website will probably shed a lot more light onto this interview. Ms. Sampson, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Have a good one.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome back to the program. Please become a David Pakman Show member on our website, davidpakman.com. Individual memberships are the #1 funding source for this program, and the future of the show depends on individual memberships. They're really inexpensive. You get a ton of great benefits. Check it out on our website. Rand Paul. Rand Paul, as we know, is he is the poster child for the phrase, "A broken clock is right twice a day." I disagreed with some of the content of his 13-hour or so drone-related filibuster, but overall, I agreed with much of what was said, even though I basically disagree with the guy completely, would never vote for him, and hope he's voted out of Congress, voted out of the Senate very, very soon. That being said, he said something else, which I kind of agree with, talking about marijuana use and saying, you know what? It's a huge mistake to jail people over marijuana use. Here's what he had to say on Fox News Sunday to Chris Wallace.
And show up and do the things that you should be doing. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't want to promote that, but I also don't want to put people in jail who make a mistake. There are a lot of young people who do this, and then later on in their 20s, they grow up and get married and they quit doing things like this. I don't want to put them in jail and ruin their life. Look, the last 2 presidents could conceivably have been put in jail for their drug use. And I really think, look what would have happened. It would have ruined their lives. They got lucky, but a lot of poor kids, particularly in the inner city, don't get lucky. They don't have good attorneys, and they go to jail for these things. And I think it's
all right. He's making a very good case, including why the war on drugs is not making sense, how it disproportionately affects and disadvantages poor, oftentimes minority individuals in urban areas. He's making an incredibly eloquent progressive case for marijuana legalization. That being said, I disagree with him on one part, which is that we should be promoting research into the medicinal uses of marijuana. He doesn't say that, but it's just so fascinating how someone who appears to be so eloquently clear thinking when it comes to this issue can be just completely off the map with so many other issues.
Right. I mean, I guess it's possible that this just happens to fall under his libertarian umbrella.
Yeah.
And, like you said, we agree with him on some things when it comes to those social issues. But generally speaking, it's a disaster.
But, Natan, I think it's interesting how we don't happen to agree with him for different reasons, right? In other words, he's making a very good case that you would hear on a progressive show, yet it does not translate into so many other areas for Rand Paul.
That's right. It doesn't translate into gay marriage, gay rights, or abortion, pro-choice rights. Although I will say that I sort of disagree with him. He sort of gets it wrong. I wouldn't say that, someone smoking marijuana every once in a while is a mistake. So he says, just because you make a mistake, we shouldn't put you in jail. I don't think it's any more of a mistake than having a few drinks of alcohol.
Okay, well, so then you do disagree with him there. Fair enough. And yes, so he does. He still is stigmatizing the use of marijuana with the language that he's using, but legislatively and conceptually, he's hitting all the right points.
Right.
A New Mexico man filmed himself killing a horse to send a message to activists. This is very weird. This was an employee at the Valley Meat Company out of Roswell, New Mexico, which is working to get a horse slaughter plant in the area. This is not the owner of that organization. This is an employee there. He's some kind of maintenance guy. The organization has said this guy does not speak for us. That being said, he also did this on his own time, which I guess is kind of a big factor in whether he would get in trouble. This was his horse. This was his facility. We're not going to show you the actual shooting of the horse. Don't worry. Here's a local news report about this.
At 6.
All you animal activists,
It is a video sparking outrage among animal activists.
In it, you can see a Roswell man swear at activists, then shoot and kill a horse. That man works for the company trying to open a horse slaughterhouse in Roswell.
Yeah, I'm sure that's really going to help the company get on people's good side, don't you think, Louis?
Right.
Unbelievable. So for everybody saying, so there's a couple of factors going on here. One is that this is animal cruelty because of how he killed the animal. Some saying shooting the horse once in the head is not animal cruelty. Other people saying it is animal cruelty. That's kind of one side of the debate. Debate number two is, was this legal or not? And in New Mexico, the law allows for you to kill your own horse if you are going to be using it for horse meat, so that in that sense, he didn't do anything illegal. Now, the filming of the killing to be put on YouTube and used to intimidate people who oppose the horse slaughter facility that is coming in here, that to me goes beyond any legal arguments and says this is sadistic.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Shooting the horse in the head actually is probably the quickest and least offensive way to kill a horse. Maybe not visually when you're watching it, but the horse obviously didn't suffer at all. Clearly, this guy has I don't understand what the point of this is.
It's because he's angry that activists don't want his company to be doing horse slaughter.
And how does this help that?
I have no idea. If anything, this would be like, wow, this guy would be working at the horse slaughter place. We shouldn't have it. And the other thing, Natan, is that this is that type of nonsense imagery that's representative of this idea that, whoa, somebody's challenging what I or my company might be doing. I'm going to push back against it. But the pushback itself is so extreme that it actually makes the case even worse for that side.
Exactly. By making this video, he's actually creating a situation where it's more likely that he will actually be hurt in the end, or his movement will be hurt by it. I will say that I think there's an investigation because this is on federal land.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so there's an FBI investigation into this.
All right, so we're going to keep an eye on that.
Are we going to see a video of someone kidnapping this guy, holding a gun to his head, saying, all you human rights activists out there, F you, and then blowing this guy away?
Right, yeah. It's, wow. I mean, just the logic of it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Let's go to some voicemails. Voicemail number 219-2-DAVID-P. Got a lot of voicemails over the weekend. I can only play a few here. First is one directed at Lewis from Heather.
The Lewis Show, any word? Also, Lewis, there has been some leakage of news that your girlfriend has moved in, and this augurs well with fanship. Cohabitation generally does make men look better, as if the good ones are taken. It's just attraction is weird like that, I guess. But my point is you have been looking really happy this week. So that was just my comment.
I have no idea how she knows anything about this. I don't know if you...
Oh, really?
Did you... I don't know if you revealed anything. I mean, I don't understand what's going on here. A bonus show, maybe?
Something,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I was probably telling a story.
Maybe cat-related. I'm not sure.
Which, made it clear that was the scenario.
Anything you want to say, Lewis?
She's right. That's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, my girlfriend lives with me.
All right. And then we have a crazy voicemail from the Eggman that I cannot decipher. Here we go.
Hi, guys. I enjoyed your voicemail from that guy, the homeless guy in California. And I just want to say, don't feel too bad for that guy in California. I myself was homeless for years, and when I lived in mostly California. Being homeless in California is 10 times better than living in a home in New York where I live now, okay? I swear to God, I woke up at the beach every morning in my van with my dog. It was a gorgeous day every single day, and this guy could listen to the David Pakman Show on the radio out there for free. I live in New York State. There is no goddamn radio station anywhere that plays your show. So what I'm saying is this homeless guy in California is really hooking you up, I'm sure, by telling all of his friends, his homeless friends that live in vans and bridges, to listen to your show. But, he has a pretty good life is all I'm saying. And
wow. So the Eggman's saying, hey, if he were homeless, he would rather do it in California. Crazy stuff. We will have follow-up from Homeless Daryl tomorrow. Don't miss that show. See you then.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.